Well, the time being 10:20, I'd like to call the Administration Committee for Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. And I would like to make an opening statement that I just want to express just how grateful I am to be able to participate in our democratic process at this level, and how much I appreciate the contributions of all of our, I guess part of it, I was listening to the debates this morning on NPR as I was coming down here in the House at the national level. I am so grateful that we have such camaraderie and contribution by each and every one of our members of the committees and the board to make Kane County a better place. And we got that on camera, Mike. Thank you. And I'd like to particularly thank Mike Kenyon for his participation and contributions.
Interpretation.
Okay. Call to order. And that would be roll call, please.
Berman?
Berman, yes. Here.
Thank you. Davis?
Davis here.
Ford? Fries?
Here.
Gums?
Gums here.
Martin?
Martin here.
Mr. Caius.
And Kai is present. What did he Ford? He was-
Must have been something at the Human Services meeting.
Mr. Ford?
Here.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay, first item of business is to approve the minutes, and I will ask for the minutes for December 9th to be deferred, and we can approve a motion to approve the minutes from November 20th, 2020. Motion is
Can we
by-
check that microphone? Is that on or close enough? Somebody?
What's that?
Your microphone is down low.
Okay,
It's hard to hear you, Chris.
I'm sorry. Okay. I can try and get closer here. All right. So I'd like to defer the minutes for December 9th until our next meeting, because I have apparently an old copy. And I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes from November 20th, 2020. Mr. Martin moves.
Ford seconds.
Ford second. We have roll call, please.
Berman?
Yes.
Davis?
Davis, yes.
Ford?
Yes.
Fries?
Fries, yes.
Gums?
Gums, yes.
Martin?
Martin, yes.
Passes.
Okay, thank you. Minutes are approved. Is there anyone online for a financial report from the financial office? Not hearing or seeing anyone. It's indicated that the monthly reports are attached. If you have any questions. Any public comment? Pretty sparse here in the chambers. Anybody online? Public comment? Seeing none and hearing none. And then I'd like to please call on Mr. Christopher Allen, for the report of the capital projects update, which I believe includes A through H on our discussions this morning.
Yes, sir, it does. If I could start with the multi-use facility progress slides for the viewing pleasure of those online and joining us to be brought up. Thank you. We can go to the next slide, please. So what we're going to present here is a set of slides from the last Corners visit, and so everybody can get a better idea of what the interior of the multi-use facility is shaping up to be. As we remember, back in November, we did a video presentation of the flyover, so everybody could see the outside and the rooftop and how that's progressing. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Next, this is just general information for those that aren't familiar with the multi-use facility and they're recently joining us. Next slide, please. So again, we have the outside views from ground view. Pending any questions, we'll continue to move on. That is the salt dome that is in progress. This would be the last, again, site visit with the coroner's office. You can see how the hallways and the ceiling grid shaping up there. And I believe that is Mr. Frau's center screen or center of the photo there and the picture in the upper left. Pending any questions, we'll move on. Also, you see the corner. Again, the interiors are shaping up very fine and on timeline. And then it lays out here the rooms for the coroner's office that are under construction. Pending any questions, we'll move forward. And this is the autopsy room currently, still in, as you can see, still in construction, but it's moving along just fabulously.
That's going to be a huge difference.
Yeah. Every time I talk to the coroner's staff, they're elated. Some people have been waiting quite a while, and this is definitely going to be a jewel for the Kane County.
Yes.
Before we dismantle the old one, maybe we can get some pictures, make sure we have a before and after presentation.
Oh my God. We need to post them somewhere.
Yeah.
If
I would
that
mention
pleases
the
the committee,
natural
I'll make
lighting
sure that
somewhere.
happens. Pending any questions on this slide, we'll move forward. Yep, there's the coroner's team on site. Pending any questions, we'll continue to move forward. This is the storage space right now. It's currently looks about the same, except for actually starting to store stuff. If you look far down at the end, there's two or three very, very large wooden boxes. Those are actually new coroner's tables. So that we're actually using the storage space before it is completed as storage. Pending any questions, we can move forward. Okay, this is the sheriff's fleet maintenance area. And I believe what we're looking through is the side that is the wash bay. And you can see the overhead doors on the other side to accommodate the large vehicles and myriad of different vehicles that will be in the space being maintained. And obviously they're not in yet, but there will be 4 lift stations there for the mechanics to work on the vehicles. Pending any further questions? This is the storage and training area, is also commonly referred to as the mezzanine, which is what it is. It's an upper level deck utilizing the space. And I believe it's around 6,000 square feet. So that's really a great add-on for space utilization. Pending any further questions, we'll continue to move forward. Again, you can see the vehicle storage area and the large overhead doors to accommodate the vehicles of various sizes. And you can actually see a gentleman on a scissors lift currently insulating and spray painting in there. Any further questions, we can move forward. And this is the building management side for storage of vehicles, maintenance areas and things of that nature. Unfortunately, that is not the county trailer, that's the contracted plumber. And on the right-hand side, you can see the entryway to the various office areas of the building management side of the building. Any further questions? Move forward. And that completes the slideshow. I do have some other comments to make on capital projects as we're going on. As many of you are aware, Building C is near complete with its renovations. The generator cutover for Building A over here will occur on the 18th of this month. The COVID UV angels and bioclimatic filters projects throughout the county are on schedule and on track. No issues there. And if anybody needs to know, we have a total of 250 devices being installed countywide. And the health department generator project starts on 5 February. Any questions with that? Okay. Mr. Chairman, proceed to number B.
Certainly.
Uh,
There's no questions.
It was just presented in the slides, and we discussed that. Now, items C through H are pre-approved capital projects from last year for this year. For those new members, I just wanted to kind of make you aware of them. They're ongoing. The Building A elevator renovation, we're going to start design on that very quickly and maximize the fact that this building is not 100% occupied, or so we, having an elevator out of commission won't be so painful to the staff and the public. The Building B lower roof project is slated for this year. Obviously, the coroner's office demolition is also slated for this year. The Fabian Road Building Management Office and maintenance areas are slated for demolition this year. And of course, we have ongoing yearly parking lot repairs, seal coating, crack filling, sidewalk repairs and replacements. Does anybody have any questions on any of those upcoming projects for this year?
I have a question. This is John Martin.
Mr. Martin?
Yes, sir.
Relative to the demolition of the coroner's office, relative to the demolition of the coroner's office, if I either neglected to see or forgotten, what is that area going to be used for once we've demolished that building?
That would require further discussion on any future use for that space. As of now, it's just going to be ground level.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
There has been some discussions on a parking lot or an extension to a parking lot, but that no final decisions have been made.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Pending any further questions, I'd like to move to agenda item I.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Well, as you may remember, back in November, we discussed bringing two items off from being tabled, and one is the Kane County Green Building Policy. Ms. Wolnick and I, we worked very hard
Chris?
together. And
I'm sorry, Chris, this is a resolution, so I'm going to ask for a motion and a second
Okay.
to bring it to the floor, please. And then I think it's between you and Ms. Wolnick, whether they speak to this, or you were just here for questions, Jody?
Well,
I would like to present the changes that occurred between the E&E committee and the admin committee, at least for the awareness of everybody of what was modified.
Okay.
all right,
So,
forward motions.
Board motion,
Berman, second.
Berman second. Okay, now, which do you think is best to start with, Chris or?
Chris's introduction would be fantastic.
Okay, then Chris, go ahead and complete the introduction, and then we'll have Jody speak.
yes, thank you. Again, Ms. Wolnick and I, we worked very closely together, very collaboratively together to bring this off the table and bring forward a new resolution to the committee. And whatever Jody speaks to, I support, and whatever is brought forward, I fully support through building management.
Okay, great. Thank you. So then, Ms. Wolnick, you have the floor.
Yes, I want to thank Mr. Allen also for his time and his collaboration on the revisions to this ordinance or resolution. Specifically, I wanted to point out the items. We did include a redlined version in the packet because this had gone through E&E committee before. And so we wanted to make sure we were clear in the designations of the changes that were made since the approval from that committee. We don't think they're substantial enough that would need to go back to E&E committee, but certainly if anyone has concerns in that regard, please let me know. Otherwise, we would anticipate this going to exec committee and county board in February. In general, most of the changes were just clarifications that were specific to pointing to the types of projects and what constituted the project team. So those were very minor revisions. The largest revision occurred on page 3, specifically item number 5. In regards to this item, we wanted to be sure that we were very clear as to which projects would be registered with the U.S. Green Building Council. There is a cost to the county to do so in regards to both the architectural fees from the firm that is submitting the project, and the architect of record is required to do so, as well as fees themselves to enter the project into the US GBC system. So we will, in the future, have projects that are more not aesthetically pleasing. If you were to do $1 million HVAC project, you probably aren't wanting to promote that as a shining star of Kane County, although it would be great to meet the green building policy. But there are other projects, and one example I used was the Oswego Police Department renovation that was recently done in 2020 and was registered as a lead building. And that's kind of a shining star for the village of Oswego, something they want to promote as part of their green building initiatives. And so if a project were to come forth on the county level, that might be the type of project that we'd want to really showcase. And at that point, we'd want to register. So we wanted to make it very clear that based on the direction of the county board, that we would register projects, and other projects would just be filed with the Department of Environmental and Water Resources. And so that's clarified in item number 5, as well as in section 5A1. And those are the changes that were modified, and I would take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions or comments on this?
I do have a question, Davist here.
Oh,
In the-
Davist, Mr. Davist?
Yes, in the packet, page 38 and 39, talking about departments can apply to, it was, it's struck out for E&E, but it just says to the committee. Maybe a little, can we be a little more specific there? I mean,
The committee
what is the committee that they're?
The committee is actually defined on page 1 as the Kane County Environmental and Energy Committee. So we missed that reference. We were trying to utilize the definitions that were provided on page 1, and we had missed that one and fully typed it out originally.
Oh,
Okay.
essentially, it was just a redundancy.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, this is Corinne. I have a question, please.
Madam Chairman?
What is the cost for registering the Green Building Initiative?
It would vary based on the project size, but we did run some numbers. And architecturally, where you're talking around a $5,000 to $10,000 architectural fee, and then the cost of registration would be about the same. So you could be talking from $10,000 to $20,000 to register a building.
All right.
Hence the application only under a very large, suitable
Showcase project. correct.
showcase project. Yeah, as you said.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Wolnick? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll call the roll, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davist, Ford,
Yes.
Fraz.
Davist, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Davist.
Fraz,
Gums.
yes. Fraz, yes.
Thanks, Mr. Fraz.
Gums
Gums,
is yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes.
Yeses.
I vote yes too. I like it. Okay. I want to get my.
Bates here, Mr. Chairman.
Pardon me? Bates,
Commissioner
yes?
Bates,
Yes.
if I were on the committee, I would vote yes too.
Okay. Thank you, Mavis. Excellent. All right, moving on. I will entertain a motion and a second for authorization to establish a policy for interdepartmental building projects.
Ford
Fries
motions.
move.
Ford seconds.
Okay, Froz moves, Ford seconds. This is back to you, Mr. Allen? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. This is another resolution that was originally tabled and was reworked and is being brought back to you today. And again, I want to thank Mrs. Wolnick for her support and guidance and advice on resurrecting this along with her green building policy. And again, thank you.
Okay, any further explanation on this?
Mr. Chairman, this is Fries.
Mr. Froz?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention this kind of stems from some issues that came up over the last couple of years as far as, some of the larger departments doing projects within their own buildings and not including facilities maintenance department, management department in those decisions. And you may recall, some of you that have been on admin for a while, that we had some issues along those similar lines. And ultimately, this committee, as well as building management, is responsible for those, even if somebody does them without our knowledge. So this tries to steer everybody into kind of a unified goal as far as building management and improvements.
Thank you, Mr. Froz. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, seeing none? We have a roll call, please?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Fries,
Fries, yes.
Gums,
Comes is yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Case.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for the authorization of final available contract extension for Kane County janitorial supplies, item K. Provider. Mr. Martin moves.
Berman, second.
Berman second. And this is, again, you, Mr. Allen, is it?
Yes, sir.
Short explanation, please.
Yes, it's very simple. We're just extending the current contract for another year's worth of janitorial supplies with a current provider.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Mr. Allen? Seeing none, hearing none?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Fries,
Fries, yes.
Gums,
Comes yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Case.
Caius, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Bates here. May I
Bates,
ask a
yeah,
question?
Bates. Yes.
I'm not objecting to anything, but do we make sure that these janitorial supplies are as sustainable as possible? Maybe recycled paper towels or, non-chemical cleaners where possible? And
point.
could that be a suggestion, maybe?
Mr. Allen, can you speak to that?
I'm not exactly sure, but generally, I'll need to go back and get further information on how the RFP was written. But generally, that's what we do seek in the first place. So I can go back and confirm it 100% and provide by item listing if you wish.
Well, thank you.
I think that a couple of years ago, I brought it by myself, I believe, and Mr. And Ricky gave us a list of the items that were cleaners and things. And I believe he was talking to that, but we'll have to revisit that, what he had said. I can't recall it right off the top of my head, but it's a good point.
Mr. Chairman, this is Roger.
Roger?
In the resolution, it describes where applicable green products will be considered, just for reference. I don't know that I think you're right. They did give a long list of all products that were used, but I know that Ricky had established that they would use green products where applicable.
It's coming back to me a little bit. I believe you're correct, yes.
Yeah, it's in the resolution today also.
Okay, I'll check again. Thank you.
Okay, item number L, or let's see, where are we at on that? That was a question after, so that passes. Item L, resolution authorizing first contract extension available for King County Elevator Preventative Maintenance Service. Do I have a motion?
Ford moves.
Comes moves.
Ford moves, Martin second. Mr. Allen?
Yes, we're recommending that the contract for a first year extension be approved. We're very pleased with the services and have no issues providing this recommendation.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Fraz,
Fraz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Guys,
Caius.
yes.
Carries.
Item M, resolution. I will entertain a motion for the resolution to authorization of emergency purchase affidavit for ancillary janitorial service agreement.
Fraz moves.
Braz moves.
Berman, second.
Berman second. Thank you. Mr. Allen?
I believe Mr. Naughton is in the boardroom there. I'll let him speak to this emergency resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I remove?
Good
my
morning,
mask?
absolutely.
Okay. Good morning, I'm Doug Naughton, I'm the court administrator. I would like to ask for your support in extending or supporting the emergency affidavit for the cleaning service agreement. What this has been is this has been a contract with our existing cleaning companies to wipe down and sanitize all horizontal and high-touch surfaces in all of our courts buildings. Now, starting on January 26th and again on January 29th, we will once again be bringing citizens back into our building for jury duty. The 26th will be the Tuesday grand jury, 29th will be the Friday grand jury, and starting on February 1st, we'll be bringing people back in for criminal jury trials. So we may begin getting people worked through the system and out of the jails. What we've asked for is for a 120-day extension for the contract so we can go back out to an RFP. We had talked with the civil division for the state's attorney who had recommended, because of the amount of money involved, it's roughly about $30,000 a month for all 6 of our facilities, that it was best to go out for an RFP. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, and I ask for your support.
Mr. Martin?
I have a question, Doug. I mean, I'm supporting this extension that is, at least as a rank amateur who reads the papers.
Mr. Martin, can I have,
As a rank amateur who reads the papers, it seems as if elements of flat surface contact and everything have been relegated to being diminished causes for the spread of the virus. When we are contemplating the long-term necessity to keep things clean, is there any recognition of that fact, or am I off base or whatever? I mean, I want to keep things clean. I want to keep people safe, but I don't want to clean us to death if in fact we're not causing a significant risk to the public.
We have taken that into consideration. We've met with the health department, and in fact, I'm going to be meeting with Uche on Wata at 1 o'clock to do a walkthrough of the building. What we're doing is we're reducing the services by 50%. But primarily what we're trying to do is to make sure that the bins that you pour, you put your rings, your metal, your coins, and your wallet in are wiped down after every use, because that is the surface that the public will see and will use. Every person will. When you start going up to the various floors of the court buildings, Not everybody goes to the second floor. Not everybody goes up to the third floor and grabs the door handles, but they do touch the security bins where you put in your personal possessions as you pass through screening. And that's where most of the attention will be paid.
Okay, I mean, my goal would just to be certain that as we move ahead with another budget adjustment,
Mm.
that we do what's necessary and don't go beyond it.
Right.
And this was vetted by the, or soon to be vetted by the health department, these procedures.
Correct. Yes, we originally specified this at the recommendation of Barb Jeffers from the Health Department.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Naughton. Any other questions for Mr. Naughton? Hearing none, seeing none? Can we have the roll call, please?
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Praz,
Raz, yes.
Gums,
Comes, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Okay, moving on to information technology. I have a motion and a second authorizing payment for the 211 services.
Motion moved by Berman.
Berman.
Second by Gums.
Second by Gums. I believe that's you, Mr. Fonstock. Would you like to speak to this, please?
I was trying to get back to sharing the screen. I don't know if you can see the screen that I had the resolution on. You should see the executive summary.
Yes,
Yes.
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 Good. So this is basically a resolution authorizing a payment to the United Way of Batavia and United Way for the purposes of the 211 information services that the county has been involved with for the last 3 years. We requested $30,000 in funding from the Riverboat for this service, and we're granted the $30,000 for payment to the United Way for 1 year in the partnership. We originally did 3 years. We're going year to year based on the funding that's available from the Riverboat. So this service funded by Riverboat at $30,000 is primarily information and a 24-hour phone service. It takes about 450 to 600 calls on average per month. The audience is primarily women and parents with young children. They're looking for assistance with housing, for assistance with food, childcare, medical, and oftentimes they're looking for shelter and assistance with the situations of abuse. So the service touches part of our society that's probably the most vulnerable. This program is also sponsored and supported by the school districts and the Regional Office of Education, the Dunham Foundation, the United Way supports it, and then recently we received some funding from Northwestern. So it's a well-funded and well-thought-out program. We've been a partner in it for the last 3 years. It's a budgeted expense from Riverboat expenses. It's $30,000 for the year. That pays for the Path Crisis call center that takes the calls. So I'd recommend approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fonstock. Are there questions for Mr. Fonstock?
Chairman Caius, this is Corinne Pirog.
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Just a suggestion for edit to the United Way. If it could be specified what United Way, because there's at least 2 or 3 United Ways here in Kane County, and it should be specified the United Way of Batavia or whatever their official title is, so we could recognize their support of this effort.
Mr. Chairman, we could make that adjustment. The one thing that we are working with the United Way on is they are transferring this program from Batavia United Way to Fox Valley United Way. If we make the payment, I think this month it would go to Batavia United Way, but I think in the near future, they're going to switch the program to like a more regional Fox Valley. So but we'd be happy to make the change to Batavia for this resolution.
Okay, thank you. I think that'd be appropriate.
Absolutely.
Okay, do we need an amendment for that? Or is that,
Well,
think
just in
that's just
case, I'll
part of-
make the motion that we amend it. Well, it's not, does it tell where the payment's going to on there?
It
it does,
United Way, and we would basically just correct it as it goes to finance to United Way of Batavia.
okay, so no necessary, not, amendments not necessary at this point, just to understanding a consensus that it would clarify things to put Batavia.
Yep.
As it moves along. Okay.
Absolutely.
And hearing no argument from anyone, I'm guessing everybody confers on that?
Yes.
So,
I agree.
great, then we will
Roll call.
call for the question then, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Braz,
Braz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Okay. Now, I'm assuming we take B and C separately because they're separate items. So I will entertain a motion for the authorizing approval of personnel hiring for Information Technologies Department Office Assistant.
Braz
Motion.
moves.
Fraz,
Gums
Ford
will
seconds.
second.
we'll take Gums. Second. Okay,
Chairman?
Mr. Fonstock?
The resolution you have is for rehiring a person that would be filling a vacancy in the IT department. It is in our administration group that handles our accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, procurement, purchasing, those types of activities. This position is a budgeted position. We're looking at $40,000 to $45,000, sorry. For this position, it is an office assistant 1, which is a relatively entry-level position for the county. It is budgeted, and we're recommending approval.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Fonstock? Comments? Seeing none, hearing none. Roll, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Braz,
Braz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item C, resolution, I will entertain a motion for authorizing approval of personnel hiring for Information Technology Department Analyst 1. Mr. Martin moves. Second.
Braz.
Ford, second. Go ahead.
Roz, second.
Mr. Chairman, this resolution authorizing the approval of a analyst basically for the network and computer support group in IT is also an entry-level position that's vacant. We're requesting that we refill or fill this position at a salary between $35,000 and $40,000. Again, it's an entry-level position and a vacancy. It's budgeted, and we're recommending approval.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Fonstock? Okay. Hearing none, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Berman, yes.
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Braz,
Braz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item D, I'll entertain a motion authorizing easement agreement with SBA Edge LLC, which I believe was submitted but not attached to this agenda. That would be a motion by Mr. Martin, second by,
Ford,
Braz.
seconds.
Ford. Mr. Fonstock?
Chairman, we have a resolution authorizing an easement agreement with SBA Edge. SBA Edge is the data center provider that we use for the county's server storage and infrastructure. The easement agreement is basically for us to install fiber utility in a small piece of property on their private property. So this will grant us a utility easement to put the cable in the ground on their property. I have a copy of the draft location. If you see the drawing on the screen, it is the little hashed area. And it is, I believe, along the north, I think that's the northwest side of their property. We'd be traveling up the side of their property to enter their building with a piece of fiber cable. As the easement agreement states right now, the actual consideration for the easement is $1. And then there's additional costs that are going to be incurred for the services, legal and otherwise, to get that in place. As those get finalized, we'll get the final cost, but we're asking the approval of the easement agreement and an amount not to exceed $30,000. We're very confident that it's going to probably be in the hundreds of dollars, but this would just give us the ability to pay for any legal fees, any associated engineering or drawing that we need to get that cable in. This easement and the cable that we're proposing to install goes into their commercial data center, and it is part of the network that provides the computer services for the entire county. So we're looking forward to this. It's a budgeted expense. This is coming from infrastructure money for communications equipment from the public safety sales tax. And the line item is in there from the 125 fund. It's a budgeted expense for us, and we're recommending approval.
Okay, is that West Chicago? Is that where?
It is in West Chicago, the easement, and it would be a recorded easement. That's why the legal services and the company is offering it to us. Right now, they're just saying $1 of consideration. They want us to put the utility in for the purposes of use on our fiber network. So they're not really interested in recovering costs for that, but there may be some legal fees and some engineering drawings that we have to pay for.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none? Anything
Does
online?
the
Mr.
30,000
Davis?
30,000 doesn't trigger any of the RFP requirements or anything, does it?
$30,000 is the maximum before you have to do a request for proposal or a bid. So that was.
I couldn't remember if it was, we needed to be 29.9 or something, the way it was written. Okay, that's great. Thanks.
It's going to be less than that. And this is an agreement with a private landholder real estate. So it's not, I don't believe it would be subject to a bid because nobody else could provide this.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good question, Mr. Davis. I think I asked that the other day, same question. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Fries,
Fries, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Okay, item E, just for discussion, Kane County Adult Corrections Judicial and Public Safety Security Cameras. That would be, again, you, Mr. Fonstock.
So the discussion on this, I'm going to hold that over until a future meeting for the camera. At this time, we're still putting together some presentation material for that. Basically, what we've been working on with the judiciary and the sheriff's office is an aging camera system that's a part of their security systems. In the Judicial Center building, there's a little over 100 cameras, and in the sheriff's jail and office, there's several hundred cameras. I think it's coming close to 500 cameras throughout the building. The cameras in both buildings are anywhere from 5 to 10 years to up to 15 years old. Most of them are analog cameras or an older technology. And we've been working with the judiciary and the sheriff to try and understand the costs associated with and the scope of work for replacing the cameras in those locations. It is a considerable undertaking, and it has a considerable price tag. So we want to make sure that we have the information relatively clear so that it gives you an understanding of the type of investment and capital project this would be. So at this time, I'd just like to put that one off for a future meeting and go to the tower information. I have more for that.
Okay, go right ahead.
So I'm going to show you the slides that we have. Let's see if we can get this going. Okay, so you should see a slide for Public Safety Capital Project 911 Communications Tower.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're looking at the existing Fabian Parkway site, the old Sheriff's Campus, there is a 400-foot guide wire tower, communications tower at that site. I'll show you some pictures in a little bit. The current tower is again at the Sheriff's former campus. The tower itself is owned by Pinnacle Towers. It's a subsidiary of Crown Castle. The tower sits on a property that is leased to them, and it's a year-to-year agreement at this point. The initial 5-year agreement would have expired in 2020. The lease of county property at the start of the lease was about $16,800. It had an increase, 3% annual. We're at about $19,500 today for the lease of the property. So Pinnacle and Crown Castle pay the county $19,000 a year for that 400-foot tower to sit on our property with the guide wires. If you look at the tower, I'll show you some pictures. It takes up almost 5 acres with the guide wires. So right now we're generating about $20,000 in revenue from the lease. In order to cancel the lease, even though the agreement is year to year at this time, it's a 2-year notice of termination. So in order to have that tower removed from the property as we demolish the other buildings, we have to serve notice to Pinnacle and Crown Castle 2 years in advance before we can do anything to the tower, or I suppose we could negotiate some other terms, possibly. The county has 8 antennas on the current tower. Those antennas are given to us as a part of the lease agreement. So we get free public safety radio communications mounting on the tower. Just a rough estimate, if you assumed that each of those antennas cost $500 per month each, you'd be at $4,000 a month for the lease cost. $48,000 per year would be the cost for us to lease 8 antenna mounts on other public available towers. So that's kind of gives you a perspective of what we have at the 911 communications tower. And the goal of this is that if we ever wanted to remove the tower or get off of that particular tower and move it to another location, what would that take to free up that piece of parcel? So this is the Fabian Parkway campus. And you can see the tower. It's to the left middle of the picture. It sits out on a access road, kind of out in the middle, and it's got a little bit of a shadow from the antenna. Hopefully you can make that out. But the tower from the road looks about like this. You probably cannot see the wires that come down from it. There are some wires that come off of the tower in 4 different directions at a couple different locations on the tower, and they go out to concrete anchors in the property. And those concrete anchors are what help stabilize the tower itself. This is a diagram that we used when we were looking at what was on the actual Fabian campus site, and it kind of tells you what all is there now and what we're moving as a part of the multi-use facility. I think most of you are familiar with all of the different things that we talked about moving. What you'll notice, the tower that's sitting in the middle is one of the few things that'll be left on this property. And it's also, taking up a large piece of property with the wires and the anchors. So this is what a little bit closer up, what the wires look like coming off of it. If you can imagine, all those wires run out to, locations a few hundred feet from the base of the tower in each direction. And that's what's supporting the structure, stabilizing the structure. Then you can see a picture in the middle bottom that shows the fence and the hut or the enclosure at the bottom. So this is the 911 communications tower at Fabian as it sits today. I think, again, this is a picture of the shelters and the fencing around the 911 tower. And then here's a shot of the interior of one of the huts. The white cabinet to the right-hand side is actually public safety radio equipment. So when we looked at this and we're determining, where could we take the tower and move it to, we're looking at the multi-use facility and the sheriff's campus. Obviously, everything else from the sheriff's campus has moved over to the judicial public safety campus in St. Charles. So the proposed building site in the middle of this image is the new multi-use facility. And you'll see where it describes future expansion, and there's also the salt dome. So what we were looking at was putting a proposed tower site next to the salt dome off the back of the building. This is the east side, southeast side of the multi-use facility. We've identified a location for the pad and the footing of the tower. If we were to propose one, that's where we would recommend at this time. We had a company, Scientel Solutions from Aurora, come out and do some work with Cordigan Clark to look at the site. We did some boring samples and some entry-level engineering to look at, where could we put the site, and also looked at extending electrical over to the site in advance of putting a proposed tower there. So that's where we're at. We've kind of identified a site. We've extended some duct work and some electrical over to that location for future use, but that's the proposed site that we're looking for. This is just a architectural drawing of the location. You'll still see the salt dome, and you'll see the building management side of the building and where the tower would be located. Out to the right is a basic tower that is similar to what we're talking about. It is proposed initially at 250 feet, and we also have a proposal to go up to 300 feet on the tower. I would remind you that the existing tower at Fabian is over 400 feet. It's a little bit over 400. So this new tower would be not as tall. The other thing that's a feature of this is that we were proposing to not put wires on it and do self-supporting. So it would not have the wires. It would just be a self-supporting frame that would go up. These are the numbers that we got in the initial proposal from Scientel. The 250-foot self-supporting is about 560,000. The 300-foot self-supporting was at 770. And that extra 50 feet is a considerable cost in my personal opinion. But this included design, engineering, the actual tower itself, construction, the electrical, a shelter at the base, the fencing around it to protect it. Additional costs associated with relocating all of the telecommunications equipment and cabling and all the 8 radio systems. We're estimating a cost of probably not to exceed $150,000. That would be coming from different budgets for communications equipment and services. Again, I said that some of the electrical work has been done to extend underground utility to the proposed site. But you can see that the costs of the tower at this point, it's a considerable amount of capital that I don't believe is budgeted in any particular budget. And that was why we wanted to bring it to your attention, to get it prioritized, to have an understanding of what it would take to get the tower off of that property and decommission the Fabian Tower. So the funding options, we've talked about capital funding And we've talked about, when the fiscal year end closes, if there's any additional funding that would be available, public safety and 911 dollars, all of those sources seem relatively limited at this point. There's been a talk about, what reserve funds would be available for capital projects in the future. Are there grant, federal, and state opportunities that we could take advantage of? We are pursuing some of those as well. Would it be something that the county would borrow money based on revenue from a tower to look at, $48,000 in lease costs for us to move our antennas is quite a bit of lease versus owning. At $48,000 a year in 10 years, we would come close to the $500,000 that the construction would cost. If we don't have a tower, we will be looking at either a lease, or we would be looking at trying to find another partner to allow us public safety access for hopefully a reduced price. But we could look at financing it based on revenue from the tower leases, and also the costs associated with it that we would have to pay for CaneCom and others to have their tower antennas leased on other properties. We've also talked with SBA and Pinnacle Crown Castle about partnerships, maybe a public-private partnership similar to what we have at Fabian Parkway. So we would go in and lease potentially the site pad to them, and they would construct the tower, and then lease or rent back to us, or give us a discounted lease on antenna mounts. At this point, we're investigating all options. I think it's something that we've been studying for the last year, trying to figure out exactly what to do with the tower at Fabian. It is a tower that is essential for the VHF radio network and public safety communications. We are working towards the Starcom radio system, but that does not replace some of the functions of the VHF radio network for mutual aid. VHF is used for ISPERN and IFERN, which is the Illinois State Police Emergency Radio Network and the Fire Emergency Radio Network. So those mutual aid networks depend on VHF infrastructure, which we have sitting at that tower. So some of the next steps that I see is working with all of the different funding options to identify a funding method, reviewing and revising these plans, getting some more refined numbers, determining if we have additional purchasing requirements that we need to follow, getting a final plan and the proposed costs together, and then looking at the funding and board authorization to try and see if this tower is something that the board wants us to move forward with, and if it's possible to get the contracting construction in this fiscal year. So with that, that's the end of our presentation on the tower. I know that's a lot of information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Ford,
Okay,
I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, Mr. Ford?
I am so happy and glad to hear this. This is definitely needed to start opening up, especially since it covers 5 acres. That's quite a bit. So this would really help make that parcel more valuable when we move forward with putting it back into the tax brackets. So I'm all for this project. I think the idea of doing a self-standing tower is great. It takes up less space. I see the money coming back over a period of time. When we have our own, we're not renting, we're collecting money. Just a matter of time when we make profit from it. So that's a big plus also. So I'm all for this.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Mr. Martin?
Well, I could repeat everything Mr. Ford said, and I agree with it. The other thing I'd add to it is that I have been, and maybe somebody can address my apprehension. I've been concerned about the fact that our entire communication capacity is sitting alone on a piece of ground that has no human beings close by to keep it safe. And with the jail gone and the sheriff's office gone, and even the maintenance department, sheriff's maintenance department is gone at the end of the business day. So I would like to have that in a more secure location. And I guess my only question is what, and I guess, Roger, you said you're going to be investigating this. It's difficult for me to anticipate why, based on what I've heard, it would make any sense to enable a private entity to build this and enter into an agreement with us. What, other than the building, other than the construction cost, and obviously it would be constructed by a company that did this, type of work. It wouldn't be done by county employees. What's the difficulty of owning a tower like this long-term that would make it beneficial under any circumstance to have a private entity own it and lease it to us?
The primary benefit is in the capital costs of construction. They would finance the construction of the tower. Other than that, getting the benefit of, free antenna locations and some revenue. But if you look at the cost of the antennas that we would put on there, you can easily see that we're probably $48,000 or more in lease for the antenna locations, and then we derive $20,000 in rent. So, I mean, the tower as it sits with just us on it is worth about $60,000-$70,000 a year, and a tower will last anywhere from 15 to 30 years. The current tower at Fabian is probably pushing 30 years. So you have a long depreciation and long life to get your money back out of the tower. If the tower company is paying us $20,000 plus allowing us to mount antennas, plus they're making money off of it, I'm assuming that we would do fairly well with other people having interest in the tower. And we could certainly, if we wanted to, own the tower and then negotiate someone to manage the tower leasing for us, which would be more profitable. We would get more money off of each customer that is on the tower as the owner, and just paying someone to manage the lease. It's kind of like being a property manager. You get a percentage for managing the parcel and leasing, but the owner gets the majority. So I would recommend owning the tower, and then if we can't handle the leasing part of it as a property manager, we would look at someone helping us as a property manager with our asset, not necessarily a public-private partner that would own the tower and lease the land. So,
Well, that just supports my predisposition here. I just think
Yes.
it's something we ought to do. And, if we can, at the rate at which we can borrow money right now, if we could do that, tie it to revenue or whatever else, it just seems to me to be the appropriate thing to do. Are there any, do we know, or have we investigated the possibility of any FAA? And I'll tell you what I'm getting at is there's a facility directly west of the Delnor campus that is part of the FAA's guidance system. And I know by experience that there are height restrictions within some radius of that that facility's location. And I'm assuming we're far enough away so that we're out of that. But before we,
that facility, most of the limitations are FCC regulated frequencies that you can't conflict with. So when you do a tower and you put a radio on it, they will do a frequency study, and they would have, if you have a licensed frequency on that tower, which our frequencies are licensed for VHF countywide. In fact, they can't conflict with our frequencies and we can't conflict with theirs. That's the FCC licensing requirements. So I think most of that would be addressed by the FCC licensing. And then any other communications that we would put on the tower would be unlicensed, or they would require an FCC frequency study before they could be installed. And that's something that our radio consultants and IT have been working with on the existing towers. We also do that at KDOT, their radio tower. But we do the frequency studies with a radio engineering company, and then we seek the FCC licensing. So
Okay, well, it was kind of an obvious question. I assumed we'd be investigating it, but I know that just the naked height restrictions on the Delnor campus are fairly significant, and I'm assuming that we're relatively close, but we're probably far enough away that those physical issues probably aren't an issue, but I assume that they'd be investigated.
yeah, we would have Scientel has been doing some of the initial engineering work with us. They are one of our partners for doing wireless communications in the county, and I think that's their area of expertise. But yes, we would certainly make sure we follow all the legal
All right.
requirements.
Well, thank you, Roger. Ms. Wolnick has a comment?
Yes, thank you. And this is more for the new board members and yourself as the president of the Forest Preserve. If you recall, when the golf course project was approved, there was a significant reduction in the scope of work for the drainage outfall that actually runs north of this area where you have labeled sheriff storage, and that then runs through the existing antenna guide wires. Because of the fact that that tower was there, that scope of work was removed. So in evaluating the property, not only does funding need to be provided to continue that work, to finish that outfall from the storm drainage from the majority of the golf course area, but it also reduces the amount of acreage that then would be available because that area would fall within a drainage easement. So I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't lost amongst the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fraz has comment.
Mr. Froz?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, with the opening or anticipated opening of the multi-use facility in April, that's going to vacate, all of our active uses on that property, with the exception of the radio tower and the recycling center, which doesn't have really a facility above grade. It's a parking lot operation. But as Roger said, there's a 2-year notice on abandoning this tower with the leasee. So I think we should keep that timeline in the back of our minds. If we do want to sell this property or do some other use for it, the time to start and the time to give notification is as soon as possible. As Mr. Martin mentioned, we're paying on that new multi-use facility about 1.5% interest on bonding. So, assuming the conditions are the same, we can bond money at a very low rate. So my recommendation is to move forward, build this ourselves, bond it. And as far as action items, we need to give the 2-year notice and then work on the bonding, the engineering, and awarding a contract to somebody and proceed with construction. So I would recommend that, as this moves through our committee, that we get to that point as soon as possible.
This is Berman. I would agree with Mr. Fraz.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. It's
Yes,
Corinne.
Madam.
Brook.
Madam Chairman, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm just trying to look at the math. The pay down for this tower would be, what, about 15 years? Is that correct?
The new tower?
Yes, yes.
10 years. About
How
10.
many?
About 10 years.
About 10 years. And again, can you reference what the potential, once that's paid down, what our annual income will be?
At this point, we would defer, or we would avoid the cost of leasing antenna sites at about $50,000 a year, and then the other part would be a revenue stream. I'm guessing similar to what we receive from the other tower of $20,000 or more per year. So I think the net positive is about maybe $70,000 a year. So I don't see the debt service of the antenna as a problem on a 10-year. The other thing that I would also say is that the public safety communications budget could also be providing debt service on this if we bond for it. If we had to split it between revenue and the public safety communications sales tax money, it would come out to maybe $30,000 for each fund, which could be accommodated. and take care of the 10-year bonds relatively easily. And that's before we go and seek grant funding or funding from other sources. We know that Tricom, who is our neighbor, they also have an interest in this tower. So we've been talking with them as well about what their potential uses might be.
Very good. And one more question. Is this an ideal site for that tower?
I believe it is. It's in unincorporated area. It is in a public safety facility with a salt dome as a kind of a ground cover for it. It's garage bays and I believe about a 30-foot tall building, adjacent to it. So it's probably the most industrial commercial kind of area that the county has. And it's west of, most of the main, I would say developed areas of the county. If you look west of there, there's a bus barn for the school district in St. Charles. There's a St. Charles, the state of Illinois road maintenance facilities. And then as you go farther out, there's Tricom has their location, and I think there's a water treatment plant. So it's a lot of industrial type of buildings and government buildings. So I think it's as reasonable a location, and it's also centrally located to the county, which is important for the radio frequencies.
And one more question. I know that there are neighbors directly to the east. Will there be any considerations from that community?
We have not heard anything like that, but I don't know that they, have been invited to look at the project as it sits so far. I mean, there's no, obviously there's perception and the neighbors may have concerns. They are currently, looking at the multi-use facility, and the development of the campus is basically 2 6-story jail towers and a multi-use garage. So I think that's similar uses, but we could certainly publicly, announce the type of plans and what we're proposing to put there.
Davis with a comment.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, you've talked about to the east and to the west, and not long ago when we were having these discussions about the multi-use facility, I think we've failed to recognize to the north and south the communities of Harvest Hills and of Fisher Farms, who will undoubtedly have thoughts on this. And most of what we've done on that campus is aesthetically pretty pleasing. I'm not sure how well a tower fits into that look. Thankfully, we're talking about maybe 250 feet instead of 400, but we should be prepared to hear from people in those two communities, about what this is going to look like.
My input, I would think that would be part of an education and outreach to the communities to see where we stand and make sure the education is appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Bates, please.
Ms. Bates?
Thank you. I have 2 questions. This tower will have nothing to do with 5G, correct?
At this time, we don't have any intentions of doing any 5G. I can tell you that is, a popular service that's growing day by day, and they need tower access. It would be, I am sure someone would approach us asking us if they could put antennas on it for 5G. That would be a discussion for a lease with the board that you'd have to consider.
Okay, thank you. I have no objections to 5G, but when we're talking about neighbors, that could come up as an objection someday. I have another question. How badly would we need that extra 50 feet? Because that's a big price tag for 50 feet of tower. Do we need that?
The radio engineering and CaneCom, they actually want 300 feet and possibly more, but we told them that at 300 feet is kind of the physical limitations of putting up a self-supporting tower. Beyond 300 feet, it's just not economically feasible, nor is it advisable. We would want, if you go beyond 300 feet, you get back into the wires. So we were telling them we have to stay under 300, and we asked them to tell us a cost for 250 and 300. If we stop at 250, I believe it will address 80% of our radio needs. The last 20% of our radio needs, which are really, I believe, above 300 feet, we're working with CANCOM to see if we could stay at the 250 to 300 feet range and then look at a potential second site to help get more coverage. And it's just because we don't want to go over I'd prefer to stay at 250, but.
Okay, we'll wait and see. Thank you.
All options
has a
are open, I
question.
think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it-
I'm
once
sorry.
you get-
Was
once you
that Ms. Gums?
I do have a quick question about that extra 50 feet for Roger.
Yes.
Certainly.
As far as the 20%, that is, how much will we make up with that 50 feet on the 20% deficiency?
You're talking about like transmit and receive on VHF radio. And so as you get higher up in the air, you just get better coverage. So in order to make up for, less elevation and less signal distribution, you'll put another radio at a lower elevation somewhere else, maybe a municipal water tower, or you'll have to make some adjustments to accommodate areas that you don't get as good of coverage if you're at 350 feet versus 250 feet. So a lot of it is doing the radio frequency studies based on the 250 feet and then determining if we have any areas where the signal's not adequate for VHF. And that's a
Sure.
science.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just asking, is there any analysis yet of that 20% deficiency? If we went from 250 to 300, the advantage of not having dead spots for the officers in our county, is it substantial enough to do the extra 50 so we don't have to do those remote locations? I know I don't want dead spots in the county for our ship.
I think it would make a substantial improvement, and we would be down to, 1 or 2 antennas that we would have to do frequency studies on at 300 feet. We haven't paid for the final frequency studies because we haven't, gotten that far yet. But I do believe that between 250 and 300 would make a huge difference for the VHF transmitter.
Okay.
Our other VHF transmitter is out on the plains at Plato Center. So we kind of use the tower at Plato Center and the tower at Fabian to get above all the geography and broadcast the signal out. So the more we get above the geography, the better the signal travels.
Right, which, working, it is extremely important that our sheriffs do not have those dead zones.
Yeah.
The terror of not being able to get on the radio is far beyond anything you can imagine.
So we're also working with Starcom on the sheriff's radio system. That's in progress. That'll become a secure encrypted Motorola Starcom solution that the sheriff is using. The radios that were purchased for Starcom are dual band, multi-band radios, and it allows them to switch over from the Starcom digital to the mutual aid IFERN and ISPERN channels for mutual aid. So in the process of doing all of the work with the digital part of it, you still have to be able to mutually interoperate with small rural areas that maybe have a countryside fire station that's on an analog radio on VHF. So this radio network becomes the safety network for all the unincorporated and small areas as well as the urban areas that use it.
Thank you for answering that question. It helps me a lot. Thank you.
Okay, now your timeline, Roger, was you had something about construction beginning in 2021?
This year, if we could get the funding together, the construction timeline for building a tower like this is less, it's somewhere in the 90 to 120 days. So if we can organize the funding and get this put together, we would want to contract sometime in the spring, and you could construct it this year still, as long as the funding is in place. And approval of the neighbors.
Yeah,
right?
whoop, yeah.
Don't want to
Yeah.
forget yeah, we would want to know what they think.
Yeah, we've been through that a little bit on the multi-use facility. So as far as action items that need to come before this committee in the future, do we need to have a comprehensive plan to educate and get the approval before we begin tearing down the other tower? Where do we need to, what do we need to do in this committee in the future?
So I think at this point, working on a funding plan that would explain how we would pay to move forward with that part would be the next most important thing is can you do it and can you fund it? Which I think the short answer is yes, but obviously we need to determine the source of doing the debt service, and that has to be clearly identified. I can work with Joe Onzik and finance on that part. And then the other part would be the groundwork to, once you realize it's feasible, the groundwork to present this publicly. Maybe we could have an open house where people could, even join online and see, rendering of what a tower would look like. I'm not going to, be naive to think that you won't have people that are critical of a tower. I think anything you build on that property will draw criticism. We found, the multi-use facility, I think we drew neighbors' criticism because of the construction of that. If you look at the type of facility it is, I mean, it's
But we did.
it's very attractive facility though. I think it fits in with the campus very nicely.
So
we do the same type of work. I don't think it'll be any different.
we need to include them at the get-go so that we don't have, so we're sure we're on firm footing on advancing ahead and
No.
bringing the rest of our citizens in. That's your district. This is your district, right, Mark?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman, Fraz has a comment.
Mr. Fraz?
Could, just to give Roger sort of a general compass point to aim for, consensus to proceed, with the concept of building a tower there that we would own and look into bonding opportunities. And when it comes to the neighbors, again, that the long-term usage plan for that site has been in effect since the 90s, and it predates all the adjacent subdivisions. I'm not saying to exclude them, but we can certainly have a public hearing of some sort or public education event. But I think you got to be careful. I heard somebody use the term ask for permission. Like you said, there's always going to be one person that won't grant that. So I think we just got to say, here's what we'd like to do. Here's what it will look like, and get comment on it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Ford?
Yes, Mr. Ford?
Yeah. Though I am definitely for this project, and even where it's going to be located at, I think that's a primary spot for it. The one thing we can present to the public is that one of our goals is to come up with revenue without raising taxes. If people turn down our opportunity to bring funding into the county, then the option goes back to raising taxes to increase funding for the county. This is one way that we're helping local businesses, we're helping our own people, our sheriff department. All it takes is one emergency where an officer can't get backup or can't call for an ambulance or something like that, and we'll wish we had the extra 50 feet in this tower, because the other tower is going to grow, is got to be replaced anyway, so at some point.
I couldn't have said it better.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Okay, well then, I'm looking for a consensus or objections to giving Mr. Fonstock a lead to proceed with investigating this, the building of the new tower, and also developing a plan to educate and inform the neighbors and get so that we move ahead with everyone involved. Does that sound correct?
Sounds
Yes.
good.
Okay.
Would that include a notice of 2 years of to our
I'm-
current location?
I'm reluctant to do, I personally am reluctant to do that just because if we don't have, we give them 2 years notice, then we don't have a tower, we'll be renting space. But I don't know, input on that from anyone?
I would recommend, Mr. Chairman, that you serve notice when you have a tower to move to and you've relocated, because the second I believe you serve notice on that tower, I believe they will vacate it immediately. They will want us to pull our antennas off of it, and they will want to start the process of moving their customers off. They will not spend 2 years taking the tower down. They will judiciously.
Okay, so just to be safe, then that would not include the notification. So we have an understanding that Roger will be developing that sort of a program and bring us some
Sure.
action items to, that we can address in our committee meeting.
Chairman, I have one more question. It's Corinne.
Ms. Parag?
Regarding the lease, Roger, since I've not had a chance to see it, and I think it's been in existence for a while. So we give them 2 years notification, and you just shared that once we give them the notification that we want to leave the tower, that they'll start tearing it down. Will we continue to have to pay for the usage of that tower for the 2 years?
No, they actually pay us for the tower to be on our property, so they're leasing it from us.
Okay, so, but you said we don't own it.
Yeah, we don't own the structure itself. We own the ground. They actually lease the ground from us for $20,000 a year, and it's their structure. So when we terminate the lease, they'll stop paying us the $20,000. They'll remove the tower from the property at their expense, is my understanding, and that would be, you know, the end of the tower at Fabian.
Okay, just so we can double check, so we're secure, we can review that and have our state's attorney review it, just to make sure we're all clear.
Yes, we actually have the contracts. I have them, and the original contract from 5 years ago was worked on with KDOT. Actually, KDOT was handling the contracts at that time, and since expiring, it's just been on an annual renewal with a 2-year termination notice ever since.
Okay, oh, perfect, perfect.
Roger has a comment.
Mr. Fraz?
Yeah, I just agree with Roger. And, you know, if you picture the fact that, you know, imagine us having that tower up and ready to go, and then we serve notice, it's going to be a very good timing and marketing situation for us to have a empty tower available for users to move to if that tower becomes unavailable. So I think that's a good plan.
So this is what the original lease from 2015 looks like. It was done in 14 for 15 through 19 is the lease, but it's trying to find the page where, yeah, that's where it starts in 15, and then if you go down to the part where we're talking about rent and terms, this is about the removal and ownership. So upon termination of the lease within 90 days, remove the tower equipment and building. So it's going to happen fast, but we have to give them 2 years notice. And this is the notice. Let's see. Early termination. This is early termination, 2 years notice is where that comes in. But that is the signed lease that was in let's see, April of 2015. Okay.
Just one last, no, if we give them notice that for 2 years, are they obligated still to pay us for the 2 years? No, if they take their stuff out, is that what that says in the
They would
contract?
pay us as long as for the 2 years, yes. While they're taking it down, I believe that's part of it, is that they get notice. And then if they vacate early, I believe that would be something that we could negotiate with them.
Okay.
But it
All right.
does say that they owe us for 2 years upon notice.
I'm sorry, you said they do owe us 2 years upon notice?
I don't believe,
You don't believe?
this is the terms of rent. This is where I was getting the 16,000 and then the 3% increase every year. And it doesn't describe not paying during the notice period. So I'm assuming during the 2-year notice, they would be paying us. And I assume that's the full 2 years unless we negotiate something with them to get out early.
Okay.
I don't know why we would do that, but
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Fonstock or anyone else on this subject? So we can expect some action items moving ahead in the upcoming year. Item number 7, back to Mr. Allen. I will entertain a motion authorizing a contract for a landscape and retaining wall and asphalt path renovation project for Mill Creek SSA.
Raz moves.
Pros move.
Ford
Second.
seconds.
Ford second. That would be you, Mr. Allen. You have the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, the Mill Creek SSA is its own entity, and these funds for this project are being paid for by the Mill Creek SSA residents, not the county residents as a whole. This is a 2-part bid, one for the retaining wall and the other part for the walking path. In short, what we have going on here is an erosion site that requires a retaining wall and then repair to the walking path once the retaining wall is installed.
Already designed or vetted by the SSA and moved to us just for sort of a ceremonial approval, correct? Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none? Roll call.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Raz,
Raz, yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item 8, resolution. I'll entertain a motion for approving the purchase of 4 replacement vehicles for the sheriff's office.
Gums moves.
Gums moves. Second.
Raz.
Roz? Okay, this would be, do we have someone to speak to that? Ed, or from the sheriff's department? I guess they're replacement vehicles, so,
And they're budgeted, right?
these are in the public safety sales tax 125 fund. They would be a budgeted expense.
budgeted item, yes.
Yes.
Any comments or
6.
questions? Hearing none, seeing none? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Raz,
Raz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Okay, on to construction. Any further comments, Mr. Allen?
I have none at this time. Everything has been briefed earlier in this agenda packet.
Okay. I think by oversight, I left in the discussion about the Fabian property disposition. I think Mr. Martin addressed that well last time. And I think we're waiting on the new architect as well as other planning. So we'll just dispense with that. And new business, we have Building A security updates.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, building management has been asked to look into some options for Building A. As we know, currently there's a level of security downstairs graciously being provided by the Sheriff's Department's deputies. That is going to end at the end of this month or is projected to end at the end of this month due to funding. I'm not sure what any alternatives the sheriff's looking at, but what I have been looking at is facilities infrastructure upgrades. Right now, I have 2 items to just inform the committee on, and one is the Building A life safety and security renovations, which is essentially going to address accessibilities on all floors of the Building A. Right now it's estimated at around $300,000 to provide this effort. What we're dealing with here with the aged building is when we start to look at changes, we're no longer looking at being grandfathered on ADA, life safety, fire requirements, things of that nature. And that's what's really bringing that into a high level of cost. The other option I've looked into as well is the Building A vestibule, basically at the front door, adding a vestibule. And that's at around $243,000. But with the vestibule, adding that level of security, it also needs to be staffed, which adds further cost or enduring cost if that option is considered. And any questions, that's all I have to report on that.
Okay, just the preliminary things right at this point, then
Information.
Yes,
sir.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Allen? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there any old business? Mr. Martin?
We alluded to it. Where are we in the process of our reviewing our architectural applications and moving that forward?
I'm not sure who would be best to address that. Mr. Fonstock, are you familiar with that?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, I am under the belief that we're in the process of reviewing applicants for the architectural.
Oh, yeah, Chris Allen, myself, Jody Wolnick. We've been reviewing the applications and scoring. I believe, Chris, we're at a stage where the recommendations will be coming to committee. Chris, do you have the schedule for that?
I was hoping to finalize that this week so we could have further discussion and review and then have it to the next committee meeting. And Mr. Fonstock's statements are correct. We have done the initial parts of the work. We just need to finalize our recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
David, I'm still in a meeting.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other old business? Hearing none, seeing none. Can I have a motion to place the reports on file? Mr. Martin moves.
Raz.
Frost second. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Ford, Fraz,
Yes.
Gums,
Comes, yeah.
Martin.
Martin, yes.
Case.
Guys, yes. Motion passes. I don't believe we have need of executive session today. Nobody's nodding their head, so we're moving on to that. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Martin moves.
Davis, second.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Okay. Ayes have it.